All right, for those of you following along with my journey, the beatdown continues. It's now going on a couple weeks, almost 3 weeks that the market's just been trending down, and that we kind of understood that going into this. We knew that at some point there would be a pullback. It's actually not a terrible pullback. It's only representative of about 5 or 5.5, maybe about 6% in total from the all-time high. And I'll show you on the chart what a 10% pullback would look like. But just in general, obviously that has a big impact on everything that we do. Their strategy was to do a lot of cash secured puts, which we've talked about a whole bunch, and then roll those into covered calls. But what I'm going to show you today is the covered calls are just a little bit too far underwater to get any premiums off of them. So now we just basically sit tight, and this is part of what we planned for. So let's go ahead and check out how we're just doing week over week and just in general in our plan to November and December. All right, so just having a quick look, week over week, you can see we're down about 17,000 from last week, and the week before we were down like 20 or 30,000. So holistically for the month, we are not doing so great. I'll show you that here in a second on the website. In terms of the options account, the only reason it's up is I did move some money. I sold off some investments that were up a little bit in the long-term investment account and move that over into the options account, specifically to get into IREN and Hood. And I actually made a full video on that, on why I was so bullish about IREN. And if you want to go check that out, there'll be a link that flashes to that right now. You should check it out. But IREN has been one of my best performers in the last 3 or 4 days. So still feel really good about that position. But that's the reason you see the account growing 16,000 on the options. I really moved around 27,000. So the difference between 27 and 16 is actually how far the account is down. So how are we doing to our monthly goals? We're actually not doing bad here. So November ticked up slightly because I closed a couple things early that were some covered calls basically that were going to expire in December, but I closed them early, and now I'm just sitting on those stocks and waiting for a better entry on the covered calls, which will be realized in December or further months out. How are we looking to December? Again, we're just continuing to build it out. I don't think that I'm going to hit goal. I'm really running out of options to be able to hit that unless the market turns substantially. And it could. We could have a big Christmas rally. I thought we were going to have a really big rally off of the NVIDIA earnings, which we'll talk about here in a second. But the market has pulled back again substantially today after being way up last night and in the morning from the NVIDIA earnings. But like we talked about in last week, what I'm really starting to focus on, and I was talking to my mentor about this morning, he advised me, which I already kind of thought this is the right way to trend anyway, is to start looking at this on a quarterly basis so you can account for these big pullbacks. This pullback will probably last about a month. So we might have a really good December, or at the very least, we might have a good January or February, or we'll see. But for the most part, if I look at where I'm performing to the quarter, which is October, November, and December, we plan to make around 15,000. We're currently sitting at around 17,000. I don't really see this going down any because these are all just premiums and covered calls. Now the account can actually drop in value, but remember what we talked about last week. If we do not realize those losses by selling those stocks less than what we paid for them, then the account is just going to show down in value. Yes, it's not worth as much as it originally was, but as long as I don't sell those stocks, I'm not locking in those losses. But what I have locked in is these realized premiums, because these are actually things that you get paid for selling these premiums. So just to round that out, looking good for the quarter. December, we're just still chipping away at it. I think I'll get close, but probably around 3%. I don't see hitting 3.5%, but hey, you never know, things could change. And then the only other thing to note here is I did slide out my plan on adding another 150,000 into this account because we're just working on selling that rental, and right now I'm just turning it over. We're replacing carpet and doing some other things. And we're going to put it on the market, and I expect this to take 2 to 3, could take 4 months to sell. The market's not great for housing right now. As you all know, interest rates suck. And so we'll just see how that goes. So I pushed that all the way out until basically March of next year to be a little bit more realistic and conservative with the plan. So now let's go ahead and take a look at what we're seeing in the market today. All right, so pulling up Thinkorswim, this is what I want to talk about. So right now I have it on, I believe, a 2-year chart. So you can see how it's just been constantly trending up. This big pullback right here was the tariffs, and then it's just continued to climb and climb and climb. But you can also see, and for really what this RSI down here means is when it's around this top line, just kind of means it's overbought. When it's around this bottom line, means it's kind of oversold. So what you can see if I zoom in a little bit on this last, these last few months, things have been really, really good. But you can see this RSI, the market's just been topping out. Had a little bit of pullback in October, topped out, and now it's just kind of trending down. What you normally see is this RSI will just keep going until it gets around the 30s. And then, that's when the market is kind of in an oversold type of state. And ideally, you start to see things turn around from there. So if I put a trend line, again, where the all-time highs was around 689, I come down to around where we're trading today, looks like that is around a 5% drop. So if it went another 5%, that'd be a 10% pullback. And remember that research that I did saying like a 10% pullback is going to be pretty standard. And maybe this is it. But right now, it does look like it's getting a little oversold. And what's very, very interesting is that we really thought we rode this thing out. What I mean by rode this thing out is NVIDIA's earnings came out yesterday. And NVIDIA was it has such a lot of weight in the market right now because it's really the AI movement. So if they perform really well, then there's not a lot of fear about there being an AI bubble right now, or maybe there's an AI bubble, but the bubble can continue to get bigger if NVIDIA is going to continue to overperform. And they did. They significantly overperformed yesterday in their earnings. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So if you go to NVIDIA, you can see that they're trading down today, but the reason this candle is so big is because they were trading way up. So if I go look at basically the 15-minute, and you can look what this represents is the darker black was what they were trading at yesterday. The light black is what they were trading in off hours. So you can see if I zoom in on the off hours, right here is when they put out their earnings and they blew it out of the water. They increased revenue, they increased earnings per share for the year, they beat earnings per share, they talked about their massive pipeline, how they can't make stuff fast enough. They just had literally the best earnings you could possibly have. And so the market responded to that in the off hours, and they were up like 7 or 8%. And every single other stock in my portfolio was up. Everything was good. Life was good. I was very, very happy yesterday. I said, okay, maybe NVIDIA is going to turn this market and we'll start to move into December at a higher rate. And that's exactly what happened. So if we go look again at the QQQ or even the SPY, if you look at any of them and you look at the 15 minutes, so what we could see is, again, in the off hours, remember yesterday it was trading down again. The whole market jumped and it was trading really, really well. It opened really well. And this is intraday, so you can see the market even open and then sell off. Who knows? I have no idea why the entire market's red right now. Every stock that I own is red. Every single one. Hood. I think IREN is the only one that's slightly up, or was at least about an hour ago. Literally every single thing was massive green. Things were looking great, and then the whole market turned, including NVIDIA. And it just doesn't make any sense. My mentor was saying that the big institutions are forcing a big sell-off. Who knows? I don't know what it is. He's probably right, but it just doesn't make any sense that a company would have the best earnings that it's ever had in the history of the company and the best outlook going into next year. Aside from any company out there, they have literally the best outlook going into next year, and they're trading down. So, right, so it doesn't make a ton of sense, but what I'm kind of reading into this is it doesn't really bother me that bad. There's some other big market sentiment going on that just will not allow this thing to climb up for now. And that's okay. So everybody said Walmart had a phenomenal earnings. We talked about this last week. Everybody's just been having really, really, really good earnings, blowing them out of the water in Q3. So I don't anticipate any slowdown in Q4. So again, going to be another good Q4 earnings. But right now, just something is just driving this market to be stagnant and ultimately going down. So on the QQQ, I have this as the next support level. And the reason I have that as the next support level is if you go back you go back and look, you can see right here, there's some support right there, support right there, support right there, right there, right there. So right now, that's basically what it's hitting off of. So ideally, we would see this not break this support level and continue to trend down into the 10% pullback area. But if it does, so be it. So anyway, that's a quick look at the charts, and I'll show you IREN, the video again that I posted about earlier this week. That one was doing really good, and actually IREN is one of my only stocks that's up. It's up almost 1% today, which is funny because it opened 18 or 20% up and pulled all the way down to only 1% up. But if I look at any other stocks that I own, Hood down 8%, PSIX, they're actually up 1%, but they're still down massively compared to where my cost basis is. If I pull up my list, you can actually see it instead of going through every stock. A lot of these are what I own, and you can see almost every single thing is red except for IREN and PSIX. So good for them. Literally, that's the only two that are positive for the whole day. But when this day started, every single one of these were bright green and all trending up very, very well. So that's okay. I think this is a broader market play, and I think eventually this will shake out and the market will start to climb back up, and all these good performing stocks that have great fundamentals like PSIX. PSIX had a phenomenal earnings. They had the highest sales in the previous quarter, Q3, that they've ever had in the history of the company. And this is a long-standing company. I mean, they've been in business for many, many, many years. They make the engines for Generac and John Deere and all this stuff. So they just had the strongest earnings they've ever had in the history of the company, and they gapped down. What I mean by gap down is they traded off substantially. So there's some other market force just pushing things down. And I actually feel okay about that, because that just tells me that the market will correct itself. And when it does, and when these things start trending back up, the stocks that we've chosen that all had really good earnings, they're going to start to trend back up as well. So what that basically means is I'm in a holding pattern for weeks, and that's okay. That's what we've signed up for. So I want to show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to jump over real quick to my spreadsheet and show you what I mean. So what I have here listed is these are the only 3 positions that I have that are expiring tomorrow. And normally what that would mean is I would get back tomorrow, I'd be getting back around $22,000 in capital to use on new cash secured puts. But if I showed you the charts, I'm going to get assigned all 3 of these. So that just means I'll have some increased positions. Now, will I be able to do covered calls against some of these? Depends on where they're trading. If they are trading too far away from where I got assigned, the covered call premiums just won't be worth anything. So in some cases, we'll have to sit on those. I'm not going to get into a credit spread strategy that my mentor and I walked through for about an hour and a half this morning. That's going to be too long of a video, but we are testing something that may help us out on these stocks that are way below their cost basis on where we got assigned. But for the most part, what you can see is a lot of what I have left for December, for September, these things could all get assigned, and then we own a ton of shares, and we start selling our way out of those when they become profitable. Now let's just take a super quick look at the actual account. Yeah, so here what you can see is the day change again shows down around 6,000. It's funny, when the market came online this morning, this was actually up 8,000 for the day. That's how fast it swung, and that's okay. So it just means we got to ride a lot of stuff out. The biggest thing that I did this week, other than just a couple covered calls, we did take a leap out on NVIDIA, and I'll make a longer video on leaps one day. But just in general, we're banking on NVIDIA's share price to continue to climb. And as that share price climbs, the value of this contract would go up. As a good example, when the market opened this morning, and when NVIDIA, and I bought this yesterday, and when NVIDIA was up this morning, so right now you see the gain loss is a little bit less than 1%. I've lost so far about $50 on this if I sold it right now. This morning when the market opened and NVIDIA was up from the overnight trading and their good earnings yesterday, this contract itself was up $800. It was up around 10% or around 11%. So I thought it would just continue to climb and they would turn the whole market, and the whole market turned. But it's all good. This is these leaps they go for months, and I feel pretty good about this one. Don't feel so good about HIMS. Probably going to end up losing some money on this sleep. That's okay. I do feel okay about AMSC. But this is another one that's just these things could take months and months and months to play out. So other than that, in the options account, basically every single thing there's a whole lot of red in here. These are covered. That's a covered call that's up. That just means it's not going to hit that strike price. But for the most part, the account is just not doing so great. These are the positions that I've taken recently. IREN, I took a $41 and a $42 cash secured put. Stock price is trading around 45. It actually jumped up to 52 this morning, and it's pulled back a lot, but it's not pulling back as much as the rest of the market. And that's what I talked about in my video. The market's just been pulling back. But IREN is one of the few stocks out there, at least on my portfolio, at least on my watch list, that is either slowly climbing while the rest of the market is pulling back, or just hanging sturdy while the rest of the market is pulling back. So again, it says down 35,000, but we haven't sold anything out of here yet. So, I haven't locked in any of these losses. My biggest loss is in PSIX, and that's because I now own 400 shares. But unless I sell these 400 shares for lower than my cost basis, which is what my cash secured put level was, then I don't actually take this $14,000 loss. But we will have to wait and let this stock recover, and I have a lot of confidence that it will recover, because eventually this stock will start trading on the company fundamentals, which right now the fundamentals are the strongest in the history of this company. So I feel pretty good about that. And then the rest of these we'll just continue to climb our way out of. I believe all these stocks are going to continue, all these stocks are going to turn around, and we just got to ride it out. So that's all I wanted to cover for this week. If you get any value out of this, or you just want to continue to watch my journey, go ahead and subscribe. Be awesome if you also hit that like button. Sends these videos a little bit further. And in full transparency, I'm going to try to continue to build this account to help as many people as I can, either learning how to trade in options or whatever it else may be. So that's it for this week. Thanks again for tuning in. I tried to keep it a little bit shorter. Not a lot to go through, other than just we're continuing to get our butts kicked right now. And now is when we show mental fortitude. We ride it out. We do not take losses. And we live to fight another day when this market turns, which it will turn. It always turns. So hope you guys have a good one. Talk to you all next week. And be sure to check out that video on why I'm so bullish on IREN and Hood when you get a chance. All right. Talk to y'all later.